Welcome to Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
Ed Gein, Demon Hunter, on Indiegogo. After a deranged demon escapes the bowels of hell, Satan is forced to send a damned soul back to Earth as a demon hunter. Armed with a sacrificial dagger, Ed returns to his old stomping ground to capture the demon before the universe is destroyed. Ed Gein, Demon Hunter. Issues 1 and 2 available now on Indiegogo. Prepare for the ultimate face-off.
We've crossed paths more than once. I've whispered in your ear, shown you harmless little temptations. I am unknowable, yet you know me intimately. But you can always know me better. Collected here are 20 twisted tales that will thrill, chill, incite, and delight you from some of the most imaginative minds your species has to offer. This exclusive Indiegogo printing of The Devil You Know Better will be limited and numbered, with signatures from Mike Barron and Hart D. Fisher. Stretch goals achieved for this campaign will add interior chapter illustrations by Stefano Cardacelli. The Devil You Know Better. Back it on Indiegogo today, while you still can.
whole belly full, just a little bitty bottle. That's all that, that's enough. It's moderation in all things. Good evening, everybody. I am RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor here at CriticalBlast.com, Chief Envelope Licker for Critical Blast Logistics, myopic proofreader for Critical Blast Publishing, and I will answer the phones and assist you with Critical Blast Consulting for all your data processing needs that arise out of your crowdfunding issues, because there are some. And, if you're new at it, you might find some struggles. So we're here for you. Tonight, it is the bi-weekly. Bi-weekly is it's bi-weekly. Every other Saturday, it is the LCS Guys show, where we sit down and talk with, people who own comic shops and who distribute comics to the reader. Too often we hear, in the industry, oh, well, the publisher's got one customer. That customer is the shop. Once it's in the shop, they don't care what it sells. These are the guys who know what's actually selling, what's actually ending up in people's hands. And tonight, we have with us, as usual, Overstreet contributor and all-around good guy, Michael Tierney. Michael, how you doing tonight, man?
Oh, I'm doing great. How you doing there, RJ?
Doing all right. I'm going to put our new little scene up here and see how this works for us tonight. If it gets too much of a trouble, I'll just throw it in the back and we'll figure something else out. Maybe it works better as a background. Oh, I just said, yeah. I was just like, looking for Golden Age panels and making us a page, and it's like, oh, look, it's Herbie Popnecker. We got some Satara.
Yeah. There's controversy in there. Get those viewerships up. Maybe we got,
woman getting spanked by Bruce Wayne. Some guy who sees big black balls in the sky rather than fleecy clouds. It's just weird stuff. And I took the less weird stuff. All I searched for was public domain Golden Age comics panels.
Okay.
And like the first 10 of them were pictures of Bruce Wayne's bedroom, because apparently in the Golden Age, the mansion wasn't that big. So Bruce and Dick had to share the bedroom. There were two twin beds pushed up against each other, and Alfred would come in. They were in their pajamas and sleep. It's like, Frederick Wortham wasn't really just jumping to conclusions here. He was kind of led.
That's a creep. I hadn't read those. Yeah. Well, maybe with the girl getting spanked, that'll get to, controversy going. Maybe get your viewership up, and maybe come up with bail money to get Dave and you out of witness protection program. So you hear back out publicly yet.
We do have people in the chat ready to listen to the show. American Comics, hail my chat. You are the first. It's not fair if you come in and chat before the chat starts, but what the hell? We'll give it to you. Roy Draws is here. Hail, everyone. Good to see you out here. Mike, it has been a week in comics this week. And if you haven't seen the news in Comic Stream's headlines yet, you will.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Eric July?
No, I'm not. I've been nose down working on this Robert E. Howard chronology, so I have not been looking at the news feeds. Okay,
well, Eric July is a podcaster, sometimes editorialist for the Blaze, which is the Glenn Beck's outreach for his news and philosophy. He's a big comic book fan, has been for years, has done a lot of YouTube podcasts on the state of the industry, where he doesn't like what's happening with a lot of the characters, a lot of the swapping, a lot of the orientation shifts that have been taking place with it, and he's been very vocal about it. And he said, I could do better. And he didn't just jump into it. He spent like a year talking about the Ripa verse. That's his sort of his YouTube handle, Young Ripa.
Okay. I've heard Ripka, but that's about the only thing I've ever heard.
Well, it's got two P's.
Okay.
It's like young Rappa. But he came up with this book called ISOM. It's got an okay premise. It's not boring premise, but it's not. I haven't seen anything totally outstanding about it yet. It seems pretty standard superhero fare. Within 30 hours of kicking this off, and by the way, he didn't crowdfund this. He put his own website up where people could put the money toward it.
Okay.
$1 million in 30 hours.
Oh wow.
$2 million in less than a week.
Is he selling crypto coin?
No, it's a 98 page comic, It's $35, $45 after tax and shipping. So it's, it's a little pricey, but it is, 98 pages and independently produced. So it doesn't have, that level of distribution behind it. But yeah, it's making the news. And, if he can do it, I expect everybody else to follow suit. And he's doing it without, well, it's like this first person who linked to it on Reddit, they got banned for linking to it because Reddit apparently doesn't like, black creators putting out stories about black characters. No, that's not the reason they'll say. They'll say it's because we don't want you. The guy was told that you broke the first rule of Reddit, which was linking to a comic book supported by a hate group. So apparently libertarians are, the next crossburners or something. I don't know.
Anybody who has a different opinion than us, there's something wrong with them. Yeah, that's the way it is in American politics nowadays. Either you agree with us 100% or there's something wrong with you. We're going to oppose you completely. And,
Absolutely.
Not embrace our differences. We're a combination of all of us there, and there's just something wrong when people start creating isolation within our own communities.
Yeah, and I've already seen, stories about how
DC.
Yeah, I've seen people saying, we don't need this kind of, political story shoved down our throats. And I'm like, I haven't seen. Eric's a very political guy, but I haven't seen any of that in the talk of the comic. The comic, the comic plot that's been put out there, as far as the teaser paragraph goes, is just this guy who he was a superhero. He's a black superhero, got tired of it, quit. And he's, he's just living on a ranch in Texas now. He's got, he's farming. And then he gets a, message from his sister. She's in like deep trouble with bad people. And he's like, what's the best way for me to help her out? Do I need to get into this and, put the suit on again? Or is there another way? Wow, Professor Murph, what is going on here? Thank you for the $5 super chat. Thank you so much. You just signed a deal with Diamond. War Party is making its debut in the October issue. The Indiegogo will soon reach the LCS. Yes, glad to hear another indie crowdfund success story getting into the stores. Congratulations, Professor Murph. So glad to hear that. War Party, fantastic book, Michael. You need to let your people know about this one who do the mail orders on you. It's just think Old West with werewolves and alligators and where it's a magical horror kind of thing where this person's seeking revenge and she's got other people who are going to help her because they need revenge too, and they all turn into lycanthropic versions of the animal that matches their personality best. So you've got a gator man in this crew, and drawn to perfection. I mean, this isn't like, high school kids trying to draw super animals or something. This is some scary looking professional horror action comic book. So War Party, glad to see that happening, man. Can't wait to see it on a shelf somewhere. So what else has been going on in comics, Michael? You got your thumb on the pulse more than I do. What have you been hearing the past couple of weeks that's worth talking about?
I know that Marvel's stepping up their game. They're finally getting good content out. They're shipping a lot of books. Actually starting to get people interested in their stuff. This, age, where basically they're teaming up the Eternals with the mutants and I forget. The Avengers. That's actually stirred up some interest. That's the first time I've seen a crossover. Get people interested in a long, long time. And you're putting out regular ongoing titles, whereas DC's just muddling away with miniseries after miniseries. Let's not do anything to build up a readership. And I mean, I'm just ordering just tiny numbers from DC right now. It's I'm really worried about DC if they're even going to be around much longer. It's like they're not even trying. And if it's not Batman, who cares?
Did you get an FOC for DC this week?
Yeah, I did this week. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they've had like 3 out of the last 2 or 3 months there was no DCs. Now I'm still getting DCs every single week. So I have not like I'm having a week with no DCs at all, but the orders are just so small. And even when I am doing the FOCs, I'm like, man, these are piddling numbers. I mean, Marvel right now, what I'm doing on FOC orders is outselling DC. I'm not kidding you, 4 to 5 to 1.
Wow.
Blowing them out the doors. And of course, the stuff I order from Diamond, it's kind of like the DC stuff, just piddling along. Just to, they got all the independents, but there's just nothing really big going on with the independents right now. All the really big titles, I can't think of much that's really what I say is a really big, strong seller from independent. There used to be some, but all the big titles like Bone and like that, they're all gone now, and they're all completed. Everything had like a finish point. They finished.
There'll be one in October. You've been warned. So there'll be one there.
I want stuff to sell.
Are we seeing the demise of DC Comics right before our eyes? I mean, they haven't had great luck with the DC movie universe. I mean, the Batman did okay, but the attempt to get a unified cinematic universe like Marvel is sort of fallen flat on them.
They've been falling flat. I was never impressed with what Dan Didio tried to do. He wanted to do the Silver Age with the 90s grim and gritty. Those it's oil and water. Those two don't mix. They're contrary to each other. And it's a simple formula. Good stories with good art. Give people a complete story in each issue. Yeah, you can tie it into a bigger story that you can collect into a graphic novel later. But beginning, middle, and end, and good story and art. It's a simple formula. And no, we want to just give you snippets and segments and a part. This is the opening, that's the ending, and there's a whole bunch of stuff in the middle that if you just grab it out of order, you don't know what the hell's going on. And then people just like, well, I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm not going to read this.
This Dark Crisis thing is like that. I've tried to read it. That's supposed to be the big thing that's changing the universe. And everyone's pushing that. They're pushing the Tom King book that just came out, which is related to it, Dark Crisis, World Without a Justice League, Superman. How many subtitles can we get? And I just saw the review on that one today with some panels, and it's horrible characterization of Superman, telling, well, you remember young John Kent was brought in, and then suddenly he became 17, and suddenly he's like, Superman. Well, apparently this is some sort of retelling of what if he wasn't aged up and you got to see him grow up. And he has all these problems going to sleep at night because he keeps hearing children screaming from Apocalypse, where they're just being, slaughtered all the time. And he's like, why aren't we going out there to help them? And his dad's like, oh, no, we don't want to mess with Apocalypse. We don't go there. I learned the hard way. We stay here on Earth and we protect Earth. And I'm like, that ain't what you've done at all in the past, Superman. You've always gone to help people who are in trouble. And so, John takes it on himself to do it. John gets in all kinds of trouble with his dad, yada, yada. And it's like, no, that's horrible.
It's like they don't sell comics. It's like the whole thing about, hey, they're going to marry Catwoman and Batman. And then, fake. Did you really think we were going to do that in 50? Then when they do it, and Catwoman or Batman Catwoman number 12, there's no hint about it. It's just a quick elopement, and it's like, let's not do anything that'll actually get people excited or fulfill what we promise.
They get married at a Vegas Batman 60s themed chapel. It was horrible idea.
Now, Tom King stuff usually sells, but I tell you, I thought it was kind of poor writing. Like when you got Batman, you're calling up Superman, hey, can you? And then bam, they're instantly there. Lois knows what's going on. He hasn't had time to tell her. All he just had to grab her and fly out the window and fly her half across the country. And she's not like, what the hell, man? She's like, oh yeah, I know what's going on. Just the timing's just not right. Just
and dress her while she's coming there because she's dressed for a wedding.
Yeah, she knows, not startled at all about it. Hey, everything's cool. Yeah.
Well, Superman is always listening. Listening to.
That reminds me of a really, really bad comic from a long time ago during the awful ages of when Image launched, called Youngblood. And you get this character Youngblood, and he's meeting his girlfriend at the mall. He stood her up like 4 times in a row. She's kind of mad about it, but all of a sudden they finally start to talk. Oh, wait a minute, I just got a call, and she's like cheering him, go get him, yeah. And it's like, this guy's never dated a real woman. No woman in the world is like, oh, you're about to stand me up for a 5th time, and I'm going to be cool. And I'm going to be a cheerleader while you're doing it. It's not going to happen that way, pal. I'm sorry. Get some real experience before you try to write about stuff that you have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, hello, Hex Allen Comics. Good to see you in the chat, man. We're trying it. We're trying something out. I'm trying to play with the placement. This thing gets broken as soon as we bring a third person in, so I have to come up with multiple layouts. But I will do that. people are liking it, then I respond in kind. American Comics, not ignoring you. They're just looking for a place to kind of segue into your talk here. He's talking about Young Ripa's libertarian beliefs, and I can't understand all of it. I can't even pretend to, but I've had Jack Lloyd on the show, and he's had me on his show, and Jack Lloyd works with Ripa, so Jack Lloyd is working with his wife, and they're putting out a book called The Voluntarist, which is interesting. But I'm going to have to read more of it. I have backed it. I'm waiting for the copies to come in. But it's all about sort of a my body. I didn't volunteer for anything. You can't do anything to me if I don't give you consent for it. And that philosophy is shaping the way he's becoming a superhero. Be interesting to check that out. But the one comic that DC is doing that I find interesting and that I find potentially world shaping or reshaping, they're not promoting that much. And I don't know what are the sales that you're seeing on Flashpoint Beyond? Not much, very small. Yeah. It's not really being promoted. It's a great book. I've read 0, 1, and 2 so far. It's written by Jeff Johns. And, just about everybody knows if you want to save DC Comics, let Jeff Johns take the wheel and just do what he says with every title. Let him, because he used to be the creative, the creative officer, chief creative officer. He was shaping everything. And that was when they did Rebirth. They were doing that, and then again, Didio stepped in and says, "No, this optimistic, hopeful stuff. No, we're get that out. Yeah, okay, you brought back Wally West. Everybody's happy with that. We're going to let Tom King turn him into a mass murderer." Which is, spoiler alert, that's the end of Heroes in Crisis. Was it the killer was Wally West the whole time? He couldn't help himself. I know. And it was an Agatha Christie thing too, because Wally was one of the bodies that was found, but he just kind of went back in time and killed one of his time selves. It was yeah. Where in the world is actor Ezra Miller doing phenomenal things for the Flash? Last I heard, he was holed up in some barn in New England with kids and guns. And that was weeks ago. Wow. At least he's not in Hawaii punching women in the face anymore.
So now Josh Whedon's it wasn't all my fault.
Yeah.
He had
Warner's keeping him.
Because a lot of people had problems with Whedon for a while there. So
yeah. You know what they don't want? They don't want to reshoot all the scenes with Ezra Miller. I'm like, you don't have to reshoot them, just recolor them, make the costume yellow. He's obviously the villain. And then just shoot new scenes with a Flash in red. We can make this work, guys. But I'm glad to hear though that Marvel is getting some traction. They're getting back into comics, because a lot of the stuff I hear, usually people don't come out and say, "Wow, this was great." They're only motivated to speak about something if something sucked badly enough for them to say, "Wow, this sucked." So
been too much of that.
Yeah, all I know that Marvel's producing is, hey, it's this year's Hellfire Gala, and everybody's kind of poking fun at the whole fact that once a year the X-Men hold a fashion party, and people walk around and talk at it, which I couldn't find myself buying, but
yeah, nobody. It didn't sell very well.
Well, if they're bringing the Eternals into comics and that's selling. Makes me wonder if they're looking at bringing the Eternals back into the MCU.
Well, it's not selling because of the Eternals. It's selling because of the Avengers and the X-Men. The Eternals are just kind of along for the ride. The Eternals, you put the Eternals by itself, and it just nobody cares. I mean, I'm lucky to sell a couple of them. The whole movie just bombed. There's some interest in them. Movie came out, interest went away. It was kind of like the first Hulk movie, the one where it had the Hulk poodle. It just killed all interest in the Hulk. And like the Spawn movie, when that came out, that hurt Spawn sales quite a bit when that movie hit.
Oh, the Hulk movie hurt Hulk so bad that they didn't even make any Hulk MCU movies. Every other Avenger got their own movie. Hawkeye got a series. Who's left out? Hulk.
Well, they did do that one with I can't think of his name now. He kind of torpedoed it when he didn't want to do any promotion for it.
Oh, the Incredible Hulk. That was the second one.
I thought that was
No,
kind of
no.
a Marvel universe there.
Yeah, was that in universe? Because I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, I thought it was more, at least more than the first one, the one with Eric Bana. That one wasn't in there hardly at all.
No,
Yeah, where
no,
you had
that one doesn't count.
the absorbing man was his dad.
Yeah, no, that they've never really done the Hulk the way that Peter David did the Hulk, which was that he always had split personalities. The Gamma thing just released his shape changing abilities. Hey, Pops, are you happy? Are you happy? Look what I've done. Pops is the one telling me, hey, that black background, you're boring as hell, man. Do something, make people watch. So this is what I do with 5 or 10 minutes of free time, Pops. I just played with it. But yeah, I thought Peter David's run on Hulk. First of all, everyone knows that Peter David's run was iconic and lengthy. But
it was the best work that he did. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I was in college when I was seeing some of the stuff that he was really pulling out, where it's like they showed him in college, like, dating a girl. And he's like, he's Banner. And he's like, just kind of milquetoast sitting next to her. And she says something, wow, you're not very aggressive. Don't you know how to treat a girl? And it triggers him. And he just goes into a rage, still Banner. But he's like towering over her, and she's like freaked out, says, you're a freak. And she's out the door. You see Hulk pop up in his personality now and then. He always tries to keep it repressed. So it was a new take that was a fresh take. Mm-hmm. When he finally did, sort of bring back all the personalities together, which they did in the Marvel Universe, and nobody got to see it. I mean, we got friendly Hulk is all we had in Endgame. It's like, how did this happen? Where's the story? He's like, no, I just got better. I'm Hulk all the time now. Whereas, previous movies like couldn't get Hulk to come out because he was afraid of Thanos. Totally skipped all of that stuff. But they had a great little twist on it. Again, David, where he was Hulk all the time, and the military found something out where they said, we know how to take him down now. And they shot at him and shot at him and shot at him. And then they shot Betty. And that made him angry. And he starts charging at them, getting angrier and angrier. And as he's getting angrier, he's getting smaller and skinnier. So they totally flipped the script on it. It's like when he's calm, he was the Hulk. And when he got angry, he turned to Banner as sort of a safety measure so that he couldn't hurt anybody when he was angry. Sort of a psychological button, so to speak. God, remember when comics had stories that you followed month after month after month, and they built this whole epic kind of thing?
Yeah, they're kind of soap opera.
Yeah, that's it. It was a soap opera.
Mm-hmm.
It had multiple endings throughout of little arcs that told big stories. And now we've got, I can think of a big story. It's kind of the same story that was told 20 years ago, but I'm going to expand on it because you've got writers who don't know how to write creatively and originally. Mm-hmm. They've never written comics. So they sit down and they read all the comics of who they're supposed to be writing. And then they say, okay, well, that's the story I have to write, is this story I just read.
Yeah. Then they wonder why older readers like myself is like, I already read that. I have no interest in that. Don't feel like wading through it again, told in slow motion.
Yeah, it's in slow motion. We have to, I don't know what I was reading the other day, but it was like, I was turning the pages, and I know it was a PDF. It was like, okay, some action. They sit down and have dinner. Action. Okay, now they're in a coffee shop talking. Action. Okay, now they're having breakfast. When did they flush? We missed something because, we have to know every little time they slow down.
The whole thing about storytelling, and this is the great thing about comics, they're not doing it hardly anymore, is you can really control the pacing with your panel arrangement. Right now, everything's just splash pages. I mean, that's the problem. People want to come into the stores and read every book in the store because you could read a book in a couple of minutes because there was so little there. Yeah. But, when you really got a story going and you're really pacing it right, you go to the tiny, smaller panels to slow the story down. Then when you want the action going, you want to quicken the pace, then you go to the larger panels. It's just all larger panels because an artist says, well, shoot, I can, it takes as long to draw that one panel that's a tiny little one as it does a whole splash page. I just want to do all splash pages. I'll be done with the book in,
and I could just put all the we can just put all the word balloons on the one page.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have to go back and forth
They
with heads
just
and
clutter it all
angles.
up, you know. But yeah, that whole thing is like, you know, it's almost like the ticking of a clock. You know, you can almost, you know, control how many seconds are passing. You know, as it, you know, the movement of the story with the time it takes the reader to go through a panel, look at each one. You know, just kind of, you know, you could control the reading. And you know, that's another thing too. And that's one of the great things about comics that they're kind of forgetting about is your eyes and your reading habit. You are the projector, and that's why they don't translate well to digital, where you've got, you know, some alternate third person, you know, trying to break down the panels, how you're going to read them and the speed you're going to read them. You know, your eyes, you can control. You want to back up and do a slow motion replay, or wait, what just happened there? I want to take a look at that again. And so, RH,
Hey, RH, thanks for popping in.
yeah, so you know, it's just you know, you control the pacing, and as the reader, and you know, just you know, you and as a creator, you control the pacing with the panel arrangements. And nowadays, it's just, you know, oh, how fast can we tell this, and how many big pictures can we throw in there, and how little content.
Will Eisner does a great lesson on this in his books on how to create comics. He shows this. There's this action happening in an apartment, and it's in the background, and the very foreground, like right in your face, is this sink, and it's just the faucet hanging there. And as the action's happening back here, you see in each panel the water bubbling at the end of the faucet until it forms a big ball and then drips. And it, you know, it lets the reader know, says all of this stuff took time, and the amount of time it takes for a faucet to drip.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you can get that beat going.
It brings you back to the real world, you know. It gives you, you know, timing like that, and you know, that you don't see that anymore. You know, another thing they got rid of that I thought was a great vehicle in comics was that extra wall of thought process. You could read people's minds. You got to hear what they were thinking as things were going on. You know. But now they're like, oh, that's old school. If you want to put in that caption or a thought balloon, you don't see thought balloons at all. You don't even see captions hardly anymore. And I remember one of the great captions I thought, and that's going to tell you, just when I describe this, I'll tell you how long ago this was. Opening splash page. There's Peter Parker standing in his room, and it got some girl throwing herself at him as Mary Jane just opened the door with her key and walked in on him. And the caption reads, "As a spectacular Spider-Man, Peter Parker has been in many, much more difficult situations than this, but right now he can't remember one of them."
Yeah,
It's great, you know.
it was
insight. You know, nowadays you wouldn't get that extra little bit of insight.
it wouldn't be there. It would just be him going, "Oh no," or OSH asterisk plus sign exclamation point. If they even bothered to do that old comic style thing again anymore.
They've actually started doing it, and I'm kind of glad to see that because you know, let people fill in what their own curse words are going to be, and that makes it where you can sell it to a kid because you know, oh, it can be, oh, golly darn, you know, shucks.
Yeah. Even though the kid knows the word, you don't encourage them to say it.
You know, one of the funnier comics I remember one time, Art Adams, where you had they turned all the X-Men into kids, and here you had Wolverine. Golly, yeah, I thought this one is. I still remember. But you can have fun with stuff like that and keep it clean.
Yeah, that's people are making fun comics again. I'm starting to see them. They're not from DC and Marvel. People who loved comics and who missed them they're taking up that whole, you know, well, if you don't like them, go make your own kind of thing. Okay, they will, and they are. And you know,
Definitely you can get creative.
And the more successful they are in crowdfunding, they move on into the distribution. I'm going to just keep throwing Professor Murph's thing up here. He signed a deal with Diamond, and of course, you know, it's $5 super chat. I got to get his money's worth out of that, so I'm going to keep that up. I was going to go somewhere else, but since I don't know where I'm going to pivot and say that, you know, some people who sell comics and write comics move into writing novels out of their comics. Isn't that right, Mr. Tierney?
I've heard of that before, yeah. Matter of fact, Shipping Now is my latest Wild Stars because, you know, I did a series of Wild Stars comics in the 80s and a couple of different ones, and then a whole bunch more in the early 2000s, and collected them all together in a big graphic novel, and then started novelizing the rest. And Wild Stars 5 ran in Cursova magazine last year. Wild Stars 6 is running now, and shipping this week was Wild Stars 5. Here is the trade paperback edition of it. And on the back,
give you the big screen of that one. Oh, that's
big screen to you.
That's big screen me.
Yeah.
And totally wiped out you.
Yeah. So here's the trade paperback. That's the Ant Oxnux cover. And on the back, it has the Ginzo Man cover from the publication. And then the Ginzo Man cover is on the front of the hardcover edition. And then on the back, you get Ant's cover. So you got a couple different ways to buy it. But
is that a dust jacket or is that printed on?
That is a dust jacket. So that is a wrap.
Okay, so I got you.
Tried to show
cloth hardcover underneath there.
Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, if you backed it on Kickstarter, crowdfunding, also shipping this week was the exclusive. It's an illustrated by Dark Philly, and this is one of her illustrations that was put on the cover with a color by Raven Monroe, and it has an optical effect on the back cover, kind of to show her a little bit of a psychic powers. Now, when you flip back and forth, a lot of people can't see it. Now, if you put them side to side, you'll be like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly what it's like." And so that's shipping now too. And so pretty soon you'll be able to order them. Right now, if you didn't order them Kickstarter, you can't order it unless you go back to try to buy the magazine editions. And for some reason, those are going for crazy money on the internet right now. Eventually, once all the Kickstarters people get theirs in hand, then the regular hardcover and the regular trade paperback will be made available for sale. Right now, if you look on Amazon, they want $250 for the paperback. So I don't know anybody's going to pay for that. I would say wait a little bit. You'll be able to get it probably $15, $25, something like that.
Yeah, that's. I've got a trade paperback on Amazon right now. It's going for like 17 something, and I'm like, if you can't spend the full 25 for the hardcover version, which is link below, folks. Link below. It's our crowdfunder on Indiegogo for The Devil You Know Better, with stories by Mike Barron and Hart Fisher. Almost 300 pages. Could get to 308 pages if you hit all the stretch goals. Mm-hmm. And for $25, I'm like, I would spend $25 on any hardcover that had a couple stories in it that I wanted to read, because it's it's big, so it's only a little bit more. But if you can't afford the 25, go to Amazon, get The Devil You Know Better from Critical Blast Publishing for 17.
Yep.
It's right here. See, it's a nice thick book. Shameful plug out of the way.
Yeah. Now in the Wild Stars 5, there is bonus material. There's a short story called "The Boundaries of Decision" that was first published in the Multiversal Scribe magazine back in 1977. So that's been out of print for a fair amount of time, and so you can get that. Yeah. That's included. And then there's also an original story, "Bees with Nuclear Stingers: A Templar Night on the Roof of the World." That's an original story. That's one I'd actually circulated around to a bunch of different editors back around the late 90s. And then once again, I started seeing elements of my stuff showing in there. Like one of the things in there was, one of the key components was found footage, the lost VHS footage. And, next thing you know, here you got some movie about a witch, the Blair Witch.
Blair Witch Project, yeah.
I said, that's it. I'm not submitting it. So I just threw up my files and said, I'm not even going to show it to anybody else again for a while. And so it just, both those kind of tie in to Wild Star 6 in a certain way. So I said, okay, well, now it's time to get those into the Wild Stars. And so included them both.
So Wild Stars, what are you doing anything more on Wild Stars, or have you got time?
I'm Wild Star 7. I've kind of been dabbling with it, and I've got to get it done in the next couple of months. Now that I've finished just today writing not all of it, but most of the Robert E. Howard chronology. I finished all my scans. I still got a couple hundred images to process. And then I finished going through all my bookshelves and everything in my personal collection. Finally, just today, I still got a small stack of books that I've got to get entered that were published here in the last few weeks. And then I'll be done with the creative side of it and the compilation side, and then it'll just be a matter of building 1,500 pages. No problem.
Yeah, no problem. Easy peasy. So you got a high grade scanner. You just stack them all up and they go zip 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 zip. No, it'd be nice, but
I'm already working on 7. I've already told the editor what the story is, and he's pretty excited. Like, yeah, we'll give you a little extra time if you need it. We want to get that story going next year. So, the Wild Star 7 it's another key one. It's I'll always try to come up with a new angle, a new way to explore it. It's not like, if you read Wild Stars, you read them all, because they're almost completely different. I keep waiting for somebody to try to accuse me of being multiple people writing a different one, because I remember one reviewer said that you can't peg me as a writer because it's like I use a different voice almost for everything I write. And that's on purpose. That's by design. I mean, I changed my style for whatever I'm writing, and it's just one of the things I do. I said, why do you want to read the same thing over and over again? Because I'm sure we've all read certain books. It's like I'm a big fan of Burroughs and Tarzan. But I'll tell you what, that second half of his 24-book series, it was like the same thing, just Xerox stuff through. Tarzan finds a lost city, probably gets amnesia, saves the girl. Okay, I just gave you the plot. And, by the end of that series, those lost cities in Africa, they were pushing each other off into the sea. They were just, oh, there's another one over there. Oh, man, I go over there too.
There's a lot of them. There's not a lost city after you've walked into them anymore. I mean, they're pretty much called found cities again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Tarzan, I think Burroughs knew that he ran out of Africa, and he had to start putting lost cities in the center of the earth and on other planets and sending Tarzan there.
That was actually my favorite one. And to me, that was where the series stopped being good, was when he went down to at the Earth's core. And then after that, that's when it kind of started getting really repetitive. And that's what everybody wanted to buy from him. He wanted to create all this other new stuff. People were like, nah, we want Tarzan. So you give people what they want to buy.
I wonder what his editor said the first day. What was the story where he ends up off Earth? Because he does go out off Earth in the series, doesn't he?
No, that's something we always wanted to see, Tarzan on Mars. And there was he never would write it. And one of the guys, editor for Ziff Davis, who did amazing stories, fantastic stories, he said, oh, okay, well, we'll do it ourselves. And I'm going to hire this guy, Stuart J. Byrne, and he writes under the name of John Bloodstone, and I want to hire him to do a Tarzan on Mars. And they forgot that, hey, we got to get Burroughs' permission to do this. And the guy had the whole book written. About the time we got ready to start the editing process, Burroughs was like, no, you can't publish that thing.
Oh. Did Burroughs ever write anything that indicated that Tarzan and John Carter lived on the same Earth, his same literary Earth?
Well, everything was kind of connected. You had the Gridley Way, by which way everybody talked back and forth. So they were obviously all part of a shared universe. I mean, he did go to the Pellucidar, David Ennis's Pellucidar. And so that kind of tied him into it. And I did a kind of like a new novel for the Burroughs people, because I was telling them, well, here's one of the problems of why the movies haven't succeeded. They're always trying to set it in a different time period or in the past. I said, when Tarzan first came out, he was a contemporary. He was a man of the times, just set in the wilds. And I said, you got to modernize him. And whenever have tried to modernize him, he does monkey foo or whatever.
They did once. It was horrible.
Yeah, they tried a couple times. Tarzan in Manhattan, where Jane's a cab driver. They just missed stuff.
Oh, she was a police detective.
Yeah. Oh, that was another one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was yet another version. So, they just always missed the mark. So I said, I got some ideas on what will work. They said, well, write it up. Give us a synopsis. If we like it, we may hire you to do a script, a movie script. And so I wrote up my synopsis, sent them into them, and they're like, man, we like this. Matter of fact, forget the whole thing about a movie script. Write this as a novel. And I did it like a tentpole novel. Like this would be like a way to launch their entire Marvel universe. I'm not Marvel universe. Switching companies are the entire Edgar Rice Burroughs universe. And I had connections in there. I had John Carter make an appearance. I had Carson, David Ennis. I had them all making appearances. I mean, I made it into a universe, right from the start. I kind of basically wild stars it, because I wrote all these Wild Stars novels. Then when I started doing my big novels, I could bury in all these teasers and Easter eggs right from the start, because I knew what I was going to do down the road. And so I could put all these teasers in early on. And, when people get to volume 12, like, wow, he had a plan all along. I can't believe it ties together so well. But so I kind of did that with Tarzan, where I introduced a lot of things, gave him a pretty good story. I also explained a lot of the inconsistencies in Edgar Rice Burroughs' original Tarzan away. And, I gave him what I thought was a rocking story, set in current time. And turned it in a couple of years ago. And now they haven't had a chance to read it, because, they were in a hurry to read it. But it took me like a year to write it up, because I wanted to get it right. But by the time I turned it in, they started their publishing effort, which is something I was suggesting to them. I said, look, you got all your books that are falling into public domain, or people are doing all these illegal bootleg copies. I said, you ought to do your own editions, sell them yourselves. Well, they started doing that. And so they're going through all the scripts, trying to get all this stuff published. They got Joe Jesco making a unified set of covers for the whole set. So now they're just knee deep in that. And then I turned in my script, kind of like, well, we don't have time to look at it right now, but we're looking forward to it when we can. So,
well, maybe someday we'll get to see this thing then, because I want to read it now.
I think it's going to be great. I told him, said, you don't want to do it, I'll just change a few names. It'll just be an homage.
Yeah. Well, that's what and I don't have it in front of me now, but I think I showed you last time. They're doing Zadar the Savage in comic book form, and they had the folks who were doing it had gone to the Burroughs company, and they were in talks. It was going to be a Tarzan book, and it was like, yeah, this is great. Yeah, this is great. We're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. Back and forth until the book was done, and then it's like something. It was like something happened where they're like, yeah, well, this it's going to require a lot more of this, and the people who are making it's like, that's a lot of stuff we don't really want to do. Change the name, and it's now it's Zadar and Rose instead of Tarzan and Jane, and because Edgar Rice Burroughs was not really friends with, but would borrow from, I guess. And when I say not really friends with, I don't mean they didn't like each other, but they sort of wrote to each other. H.P. Lovecraft, they would borrow from each other in their writing.
H.P. Lovecraft were tight, but I never heard about Edgar Rice Burroughs talking to H.P. Lovecraft.
Well, yeah, they were fans of each other's work.
Okay, I heard that.
But yeah, they didn't sit down at dinner with each other on a frequent basis or even at all that I'm aware of. But the guys who are doing Zadar also do a book called Lovecraft P.I. with Ward Lovecraft. And in the second book, the Tarzan stories are set in World War I. He's already Greystoke, who's been a major in the army and has gone back to Africa. And, Germany is making incursions there, and the British Army is fighting there. And he's going to run into a very young Ward Lovecraft in the fight in Africa. So they're going to tie their Lovecraft and their Burroughs-esque story together and bring that in. So yeah, that was again creative works. Zadar the Savage #1. Find it, folks. You won't find it in comic shops. You're going to have to find it online in a catch-up campaign somewhere. Wow. So that's this week in comics, I guess. I'm trying to think what else has been happening. I know that I just got a package today. Speaking of, where'd I put it? Oh, I hate when that happens. It's like it was right in front of me. And I haven't opened it yet. This is from Stuntman Comics, which is Mandy Summers. You might remember Mandy. We had her on the LCS Guys show like 2 years ago. So this is the one that she's doing. She does this with Peter Gilmore, an artist in England. This is Jack the Ripper, Vampire Hunter. So all those murders that he's been stuck with. Yeah, if he hadn't, it could have been bad. He was killing vampires. These were all those women in the alleys. They were like Dracula's wives and stuff. So
I've heard that take before.
It's there's not a page in here that I can show on screen because they're. And that one's too close to the end. Okay, there's a lot of negligees in here that are translucent. He Jack the Ripper. He took down 2 million vampires in less than a week. Thanks, Roy. Appreciate that. So I'm getting notices on my phone all the time that this is shipped, that shipped. So I'm going to get all kinds of stuff in soon. The other one that's been making waves and is finally closed out. This is The Company Men. This is out of Australia, and I'll bring it in closer here. This is the hardcover version, the last hardcover version that we have in hand. And it's they're a group. They remind me of Thunder Agents. What Thunder Agents was trying to be, where they were a group of like CIA agents with superpowers. And they got burned on a job, so now they're disavowed and they're trying to survive and find out who it was that betrayed them and set it all up. If you haven't got The Company Men, you missed out. You're gonna have to wait for another campaign now, or you're gonna have to find an outlet like Critical Blast to get them from. But that's it for me, Mike. I don't know what else is going on that we could.
Let's see. I can't think of anything else just right off the top of my head there because, like I said, I've just been nose down the grindstone trying to hit that finish line on that Robert E. Howard chronology. I do know I'm about 7,500 images in. Once I get done with this last little section on the table, I'll do a word count. I'm thinking it could be as high as like 500,000 words on this thing. This is a monster. If you ever saw my Egg Rise Brewers chronology, that thing's 4 volumes, 1,500 pages, or about 1,400 pages, and it was only 150,000 words and 5,000 images. So there's just
Really?
there's so many details on this thing. So this will have even more images and have a lot more words. This stuff got reprinted so much.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They kept reprinting more and more.
Yeah, with Burroughs, it was published in a magazine, and then they came up with the book editions. A lot of different publishers do different book editions, and I've mainly focused on all the different art covers, as the art changed, as the publishers changed. And, I thought, well, Howard, he only had a 10-year career. Burroughs wrote for decades. And but when I got into it, I was like, man, this is a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. It's a monster. I mean, it was a cornucopia of a horn that just kept putting out more and more. I kept finding things in my collection. I'm still wondering. I think I'm done now. I think I found everything. I'm still wondering what else might be behind back there. Sometimes I'll find something I didn't think I had. Oh yeah, I had that all along.
I was going to say, do you have any anxiety that, the thing's going to be published and suddenly you're going to find like a whole series of Conan books from 40 years ago that you didn't know was out there, and now here they are?
Sure there will be something that I'll find. Like, it might even be something in my collection. Like, oh, this is off in another box. I didn't find that. Because I found one section. I was like, I guess I need to buy all these things. I thought I had those, and I found a box with them in it. And so my personal collection has just kind of gotten out of control. I need to start trimming it down. I mean, I've filled my house up to the point where it's almost like a Rubik's Cube. You got to twist everything around to get to the right box. And I'm just to the max. I've got my hallways that got bookshelves on it. I've got 2 library rooms and into a hallway. And like I say, it's just, they're everywhere now. In my living room, as you can tell on the shelf behind me, I've got a lot of books up there. But when you get off into my own personal bedroom, you can't tell what I do for a living there. Used to, you couldn't tell when you'd walk into my house. Now you can, since I'm shipping and doing my business out of my house. It's pretty obvious what I do now. But used to, unless you got back into my library room, you wouldn't know what I did for a living.
Yeah, it's boxes and comics all around me right now from the shipping that I'm doing. So
walking pathways.
Yes. Yeah. I just actually, before the show, I'm like, this is a box I can take everything out of here and put it into an already existing half full box and actually fix up a foot by a foot, which is a lot of walkway when you finally get it back.
Yeah, I've still got stuff that I moved into my house from when I closed the store, but then I immediately started working on this Robert E. Howard chronology thing. And of course, I had a couple of Wild Stars book novels to write, so I knocked those out. Of course, I just finished the Tarzan novel. So, I mean, I have just produced like you would not believe. So I've still got stuff. I'll get to it later. Once I get this done, once I get that done, once I get this chronology done, then I'll have time to work on these other things. And I'm kind of excited. The fact I just got to the point today where I'll start to finish things up on that chronology. And like, okay, now I can start doing these other things and kind of catch up on things I'll get to it when I can. I mean, I've gotten this huge deluxe book from Vanguard of presented paintings, and I got it right about the time I signed the contract. Okay, when I get done, then I'll break the shrink wrap, and get to reading it. But talking about shrink wrap, that's one thing I've been doing on the chronology. Is there's so much stuff I had that I bought for it for the chronology someday, and I'm breaking the shrink wrap on it. It was the same thing when I did the Burroughs thing. You would not believe how much shrink wrap I bought, broke into, and so someday if I ever do get to start selling those parts of my collection, that'll have to be a pedigree, and it's mostly going to be near mint. Although it does disappoint you, like you get something, you've had it in the shrink wrap, never opened it up, and then you take the dust wrapper off, or you find somewhere where somebody in the production process wrote something on there, or they marked something up, you didn't realize it was damaged all along. Here you thought you had a perfect pristine thing, and no, you don't.
That's happened with Rena Strakowski, who did Fiendish. She got all these bricks of books, and they were shrink wrapped bricks, and she picked them up. She actually picked them up at the printer. So it's like, check them, make sure they're good. Well, you look at them and they're like, they're not like, there's no holes in here. There's no dents in the stack. And she started fulfilling her books, and then she got like down a couple of bricks, and suddenly the process changed. And the front cover of every book after that had a triangular dent stamped into the cover where the machine grabber had something that grabs them on the machine was just pressing too hard and imprinting on it. She had all these things, and it was like days since she had picked it up, So there was this whole issue about like, hey, are you guys going to cover these damages? Well, you should have checked them before you took them out of the building. Yeah, it was a mess. I feel sorry for her, but she's getting it straightened up. The printer's working with her.
I got a horror story. It's like, one of the things I talk about in my chronology is about how you can protect your collection, but then sometimes you're damaging it. What type of bags and boards do you use, how bags are bad on you, how Mylar, I've had that do destruction. I told you previously about how it pulled, it messed up some of my Platinum Death of Superman, and also the Platinum Rebirth of Superman and Adventure 500 and the Death of Superman 75 from being in Mylar all that time. And it kind of affixed to the cover. And yeah, just like it glued itself to it, and had to do a little damage because these were never been, open. They were still sealed in the original colorful printed plastic with the printed S on there, and the Mylar just affixed to it. Well, I just the last couple weeks ago, I sold a Platinum Spider-Man #1. It was a bonus that Marvel sent to us when they did the McFarlane series of Spider-Man. And so they sent us a super deluxe edition, all the ads taken out, a lot of extra posters in the back of a cover sheet done. And, just has a giant #1 on it, no price and no barcode. It's got a Spider-Man face in it. Well, I took that thing and the letter that I got with it and put them in a Mylar. Well, I did that at both stores. Well, I sold one at my other store, but the second one at the one store, I was like, I'm going to keep that. Turned down offers for years and years, thinking it's been sitting untouched in this Mylar since the day I got it in, all this time. Then I get ready to sell it on eBay, pull it out of the Mylar, and so I had it in a Mylar in a frame case, with UV protection to protect it.
Yeah.
Belt and suspenders. Open that thing up. And some idiot employee sometime in the past decided, I got to take a personal look at this thing. And with the Mylar, scraped a big old section out of the back. So all of a sudden now it's gone from near mint to fine. I mean, he just did.
The Mylar scraped the book?
That's one thing. Mylar, it's got those sharp edges. And you always heard about those thumbprints where people pushing the thumb to get it into the Mylar. You get Mylar thumbprints. And I mean, Mylar, it's sharp edges. You could do some damage, and I've seen it happen. It's happened to me. And so some employee of mine just decided they wanted to look at it, damaged it, and immediately slipped it back in. Well, who knows who it was? Because I mean, it could happen anytime over 30 years. And but the fortunate thing is the letter was still there and intact, and I got probably more just for the letter than what I got for the book, because I guess finding those original letters, I guess there's counterfeit copies of them out there. And so, mine was the original one, and I still saved that letter. I guess a lot of people didn't. And so that was worth more than what the book itself was, because the book kind of got devalued by that Yahoo damaging it. But, Mylar, you got to be careful on it. And it's kind of funny, too. Another thing I was talking about in my Robert Hare chronology is I'm going through these books that I bagged up, 30 years ago. And, some of the bags, they still look pretty good, because they were about 3 Mylar thick back then, or not 3 Mylar, 3 mil.
3 mil, yeah.
3 millimeters or whatever thick. And those bags still look like they're pretty good. A lot of them I didn't even change. I said, hey, they're still working. Then I got other bags that are only 10, 20 years old. I'm like, man, it's a good thing I'm getting these off here. These bags are going to be the point where we're going to start damaging the books, because they just make the supplies so much less. I mean, they're not even a mil thick anymore. And they changed it. They went from ethylene over to propylene. Now, propylene had a lot brighter clarity. The ethylene was a little bit hazier. So when the propylene came along, everybody liked the look of it better. That was another great thing about the Mylar. Your books really look good in the Mylar, but you had to be careful taking them in and out. And so, your supplies can be dangerous to your collection.
Now, a lot of times I'll go into like old books, even in my own collection. I've rebagged them at these times where the bag, it's adhering to your fingers. It's like, this feels like something poured like sugar water all over it. And I'm like, I'll pull it out and it's like all cloudy. I'm like, no, throw that out. Get me a new bag and put it back in there. And I've seen the same thing happen with books that I bought that were like little stacks of books in shrink wrap. The shrink wrap, shrink wrap's supposed to stick to itself, but it really feels sticky and icky. Like, even when you throw it away, it's like you feel like you've got something all over your fingertips.
Shrink wrap is not archival. And so, me, tearing all these shrink wraps, if I was going to resell them right now, people want to get it in the original shrink wrap because that way they know it's still original. But shrink wrap is not archival. You really do want to get that shrink wrap off at some point, because it could adhere to it. And something I used to see long time ago before you actually had comic supplies. people would get these bags at the grocery store, put their comics in them. Well,
Yeah.
they had PVCs in them, and back then, and they would actually adhere to people's covers. And so you'd see when they pull the bag off, it actually would leave a wrinkle pattern in the ink from where the wrinkles in the bag pulled off sections of color on the cover of the book. I used to see that happen a lot. I had people come in with X-Men 94, all marred up from the bag they tried to store it in to protect it. So
Yeah.
you got to be careful when you're trying to protect something. You can actually be doing damage.
Yeah, when I was in 8th grade and I had a pretty decent comic collection, even then, I was getting those like gallon Ziploc bags and just like, take 4 or 5, slip them in there. And then, but what happens is you seal the Ziploc and you fold it over. Now you've got that solid little zip thing constantly pressing into the back of that book.
Oh yeah, I mean, when people bring in their books for sale, sometimes it was just they'd be saving things for all these decades. They think they really had something, and it'd be just devastated sometimes. Like I had one guy walk in with all his early Marvels. I mean, good stuff from the '60s. When I could told him what I could pay him, he was disappointed because, well, I thought these would be worth more than that. And I said, well, they would have been if it hadn't been for all the water damage. He goes, water damage? What are you talking about? I put those in plastic right away. I read them one time. They've been untouched. I said, well, look at them. And he started going through looking at them, and this look of horror just came across his face. He goes, oh my God, when I was in college, I had a roommate who I knew liked to read when he took a bath. He had no idea he was doing it with his Fantastic Four #1 and his Spider-Man #1.
And he dropped it in the tub or just water dripped it on his. Oh my God.
Well, he's taking a bath, wet hands, and reading his comic. Yeah, Spider-Man. It just destroyed this guy's collection. It's just all water damage to heck. And I think the judge said it was justifiable homicide, though. So,
yeah, okay.
I don't know if I ever talked to the guy again, but that'd have to be devastating to find out somebody just devalued your collection like that because they wanted to read your personal books while they took a bath.
Oh man.
Another guy got pretty angry. I mean, he took it pretty good because it was obvious to him. Now, another guy was trying to show him the obvious damage, and he didn't want to see it because he didn't want to believe it. This was a guy who'd bought all those. He didn't buy them new, but he'd bought them in the early 70s. Got ready to cash them out, brings them into my store. I'm like, well, yeah, but if it wasn't for the fact they've all been trimmed, because that was something they did in the early 70s, is they trim them to give them those nice sharp edges. If you got Marvel comics from the early 60s with sharp edges, they've been trimmed because they made the comic covers larger than the inside. And so you want that little touch of flaking on the outside. That's actually a good thing. But, people would take them in a paper cutter, trim like a 1/16 of an inch off or an 1/8 of an inch off on all three sides.
Like the people who bought them for their personal selves would trim them themselves.
Yeah. And then it gives them all those nice sharp edges. Amazing. Man, those are the cleanest looking books I ever saw. But they're not supposed to look like that because they made the covers larger than the inside. And so you do want that little bit of a flap on the outside. And, and they did tend to, get, Marvel chipping. And, so this guy had these books where he bought them from a guy who'd done all that trimming. He thought he had near mint books. I'm like, no, these have been trimmed. And he didn't want to hear it. And I was showing it to him. I said, look at it. You can compare it to here's some others from the same time period. See how these are wider and taller than yours? And he got mad at me. And he's like, my God, you're trying to rip me off. I was like, no, look, I don't even want to buy the books now from you. I said, I'm just trying to let you know what you really got. And because obviously he wanted more than what I was could even thought to pay for it. I couldn't sell something like that at the prices he thought they were worth because they weren't worth it. And but now a flip side, another time I had a guy come in with his personal collection when he was a kid, and I asked him, I said, "Now are these complete?" He goes, "Oh yeah." Of course they always say that. Well, you got to count anyway. And so I go count. I'm looking at these. There's something wrong with these, and so I kind of go flipping through them. Somebody had gone through and torn out all the ad pages. Now, it's still good early 60s Marvel, and the stories were still there complete, but the books themselves were not complete. Then he admits, oh, yeah, his brother used to do that. So, I mean, they still had some value. I mean, they're not completely worthless because at least they were still readable. And, so I was paying him what I could. And he was just thrilled with what he was getting them. And at one point he goes, you ain't got no wife. You pay this kind of money for these old beat up books. He's like, he's really getting one over on me. And I was giving him a fair price. But, that one, the guy, he knew what he was trying to sell me and he knew they were complete. And he was happy with what he was getting.
With all the people who come in over the 40 years you had the store open, did you ever have an instance where the police come in, looking for certain books because somebody got robbed?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've had people try to sell me those books, but I guess I've had good radar because I've never bought stolen books ever to my knowledge. But there were many times when I wouldn't do a deal with somebody, and sure enough, I've had the cops or the person whose books were stolen come in the next day, and I'll say, "Yeah, here's the guy. Here's his license plate number." I knew there was something wrong with that guy. Had one guy one time back his car out of the parking lot and down the street because he knew I was trying to get his license plate number. And it always was a roommate, a relative, a neighbor, a friend, somebody they'd brag to. I've got this valuable comic collection.
Yeah.
And the other person said, well, I'm just going to steal and get the money out of it. And then invariably they come in and find out it wasn't worth what they thought it was. But you could always spot them so quick because they'd be overselling it and trying to talk it up like they had something, like one guy was trying to say, the one to back down the street, I said, "Oh, I paid you $500 a book for these things." I said, "Sir, I've never sold those for 50 cents. Those books are not worth $500. They've never been worth." "Oh, yeah, as a kid, I was coming in dropping $500 a book." I've never had a kid come in dropping $500 a book in my store.
No.
So, you can just tell when they're just BSing you. There's something wrong with it. So when people don't know what they're talking about, usually they're half drugged out and you want drug money. And I remember one time I wasn't buying this one collection and the guy's girlfriend sticks her head in the door. She said, "Ain't you got the money yet? You won't give me none." And I'll tell you what, if looks could kill, she would have dagger-eyed me to the death right on the spot. I mean, they just wanted the money. They had a drug deal to go do. And I was like, "No, I ain't buying your books." So I've always had good instinct for that. And usually you can identify them, like I say, you know what they're doing. Another thing, too, that, in case I didn't catch it, that always would save me, is I'd insist on writing a check.
Yeah.
And so
you should always do that.
Yeah. And, that way they got to give you a name. They got to go cash it, where they have to give a driver's license someplace. They were leaving a trail. And they'd be like, no, they'll start balking then. And so, between the radar and, go to write a check, then that's pretty well protected me. So I never ever bought stolen comics, but I'd had people trying to sell them to me.
See, that should be your next book, Mike. When you're done with the next 5 books of the Wild Stars, get that 12th book out of the way. Just sit down and write something for the industry. 40-year history of running a comic shop, and just pull the anecdotes out. And
I did save help one store recover $75,000 in lost comics one time.
Really?
Just 2 comics. It was a Wonder Woman #1, and what was the other one? I think it was original. Was it original Green Lantern #1 or something? No, it was the original Shazam guy #1. The first one, maybe one was a 2. So the first Wonder Woman and the first Shazam. And a guy walks in wanting to sell these, and I was like, "This ain't right," But I had a feeling they were stolen books. I kind of wanted to recover them because I said, it wasn't adding up what he's telling me. And so I gave him like $500 for them. I said, "Sir, these are worth a whole lot more than this. But if you just want me to write you a check right now on the spot here on a Saturday night, I'll write you a $500 check." But, I was figuring, I'd probably get that back in a recovery fee, which I did. And, they were happy to give me that money to get the books back. But it's kind of funny. You recover somebody $75,000 worth of books. And you know what my thank you, what my reward was? An out-of-date gift basket of coffee and chocolates, everything out of date. Next time, walk on and let them deal with it themselves,
Yeah. Yep. Well, $70,000 for those 2 books. I'm trying to think what year that would have been, because they're not 70,000 for those 2 anymore.
Yeah, the early 40s.
No. I mean, what year it wasn't the early 40s that you got those books in hand.
That was just a few years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I could have got Showcase #4 for $500 from and it was cherry. It was such a sweet condition book. I'd go in the guy's store and I'd look at it and be like, and my ex was working there, and I'd look at him like, boy, $500, well, I don't think he even had 500. I think I had 1,200 on it because that's what it was guiding at. And she came home and said, "Yeah, he sold that book." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, he had the bill collector walk in, said, 'I want money now. Today I'm not leaving without it.'" And he took the book to Raleigh, North Carolina, and sold it for $500 cash and $200 in trade, or some sort of mix. But he got 500 cash. I was like, I'd have given him 500 cash for it. That's the money he needed. That's how much he had to pay the bill off.
Oh yeah, I've been doing this so long, for 40 years. I remember selling Fantastic Four #1, Amazing Spider-Man, Amazing, Fantasy 15, for like $100. That's all they were worth at the time. And boy, don't you know, I wish I had some of those. Some of those are worth tens of thousands of now. But comics are always a good investment if you just buy them. Buy what you like is what I always tell people. Don't buy them because you're planning on making money off it. Buy it because it's something you enjoy. If it doesn't go up in value, you got what you paid for. But if you got good taste, the chances are you'll be ahead of the curve.
Original Art's doing the same thing in the market sometimes. Somebody had an original page from the Sandman, and it was Colleen Duran's artwork of Death in these panels here. And I forget what it sold for, but it was like, it had extra zeros on the end of the price. Huh? And Colleen's commenting in Twitter, like, yeah, I remember selling that page for $35.
Yeah, back in the 70s at a convention, comic convention in Wichita, Kansas. And I walked in, and there's kind of a crowd over one spot. I was like, I don't know what's going on at that table. I don't care. I was interested in the Burroughs and Howard stuff, so I found what I wanted and left. And next, I get home, and I guess I was entered into a raffle when I, bought my ticket. Like, hey, congratulations, you ran a raffle. And I said, well, great. What I win? They're like, what? You don't know? Didn't you see the crowd? And it was a piece of original Spider-Man art. Now, it wasn't U.S. Spider-Man art. It was UK Spider-Man art. And it was the wedding of Doc Ock and Aunt May, from when it ran as a weekly. They redid the stories. They would draw new artwork on it. And so I sat on that thing. And a couple of years ago, I sold that thing for like $2,500.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I just had to sit on it for about 40, 50 years.
I've got original sketches. I don't have any pages of original art. I might have to buy one soon because see if I can. I'm gonna have to take our pretty little banner down here and show this off. I'm gonna pull it up over to the side here. But this afternoon we sat down and talked with Rich Parada, who was he broke in at Marvel. He was working. He worked at Marvel, he said, when the good artists were there. But he's doing a book series on Kickstarter right now called The Roaring, which can be set in the 1920s. Bunch of flappers that are taking out the mob so that they can take over the mob. And one of the things that he's doing with that, and I'm sharing the screen here if I can pull it up, is this is the police chief or the police captain, Captain Randolph John Carter.
Okay.
And
RJ.
Yes. So I did several face poses for him to do that. This is the first time I've been put into a comic by anybody ever.
Yeah.
So and as a pretty important character to boot, not like walking around in the background. So really touched that Rich would do that.
Yeah, that's nice.
So naturally, I've got to own the book now when it comes out.
Oh yeah,
it's launching in August, delivering in October. He's already doing artwork on issue number 2.
Oh, good.
But he's over in the UK, or we would have had him on tonight as a guest instead of in the afternoons when he was like awake and cognizant. He'd be like, yeah, what are we talking about again? He'd be out of his mind asleep.
Yeah.
All right, we filled the hour talking about comics again.
Oh yeah,
and,
always something to talk about.
Always something to talk about. Next time we see you will have completed the Robert E. Howard art chronology.
Yep. Then I'll just be on the build, and then working on really trying to knock out my Wild Star 7, the gold effigy, or not effigy. I get another word for it, but I can't even think of how to say it right now. It's a word you don't use very often, but it just kind of means basically the gold standard.
Okay. Any other art chronologies that you're eyeing as a potential future project?
Well, it's kind of funny because I was talking to the publisher. I said, look, I've got a collection of all the Frazetta stuff. It's ever been published in book magazines, all different format. And I don't know if he mentioned it too or not, but all of a sudden Vanguard said, now they're going to do it. So scratch that idea.
What about a Gibson? What about a Walter Gibson one?
I don't have enough of his stuff. I mean, he did a lot of great stuff, but I don't have enough of him. Something else I have where I could do one right now would be the Disney Ducks. All the, of course, maybe in a completist, I'd get all the rest of the Disney runs because the Carl Barks stuff is just, so great. I mean, head and shoulders above, all the other people who tried to do the Disney stuff. And really, I mean, he was just a fantastic storyteller. I don't care who you compare him to. I mean, realistic history or superhero, whatever. He was a great storyteller. He knew how to tell a story, and he knew how to draw it in a very entertaining fashion. And it really defies time. I mean, this is stuff he was doing back in the 30s. It was when he started all through the 40s, the 50s, into the early 60s. And you read it today, and it's just as timeless as it ever was. I mean, it's just hilarious stuff. And he did about everything. I mean, everything from the battle to try to get the nephews to take a bath to sunken treasure underneath the ocean, traveling to other planets, Uncle Scrooge swimming in his 3 cubic acres of money. Uncle Scrooge here, he had, 3 nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Well, I was like, hey, I got 3 nephews, Danny, Denny, and Donnie. But I ended up with 3 cubic acres of comics, and not 3 cubic acres of money.
I could see them. I could see you having 3 cubic acres of comic and just them diving in and out of the pages.
Yeah,
your pool would be mint for 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, man. Well, Michael, thank you again for sitting in with us and talking comics at length. And always glad to have you on the show. I've got to find a time to reach out to more shop owners so we can kind of spread the love around a bit.
Mm-hmm.
See who we can get on here.
In the
meantime, yes. Now that's available. Is that available at thewildstars.com?
Well, you'll see me talking about it. There's no links up yet because right now, I say the only one available on the link is the $250 copy of the paperback. So I'm not pushing that. I'm not linking to it. Once those are available where you can get them, I will put up links.
All right. But for all the other WildStar stuff, the link to Michael's site is below. The WildStars and the Edgar Rice Burroughs chronology, I think, is also linked down there.
Oh, yeah. You can get all those. And they're available.
All of that is on. As well as some cool videos of what happens in a comic book store when Marvel sends actresses to pretend to be She-Hulk on certain special.
She showed that the one time there.
Yes, absolutely. All right, everybody in the chat, thank you so much for being here tonight. We don't have a show without you. We're just a podcast falling in the woods. And as always, while you were here, we just hope you had a blast. Good night, everybody.
It was fun.